On a quiet afternoon in a bustling city neighborhood, Jamal, a thoughtful black teenager known for his kindness but living an ordinary life, found himself crossing paths with a man he never expected to meet. The man was old, frail, and clearly out of place among the busy shoppers. His hands trembled as he struggled with heavy grocery bags, stumbling with every step. Without hesitation, Jamal stepped in to help. It was just a simple act, a good deed he didn't think twice about. After all, helping someone in need was something he believed in deeply, something his grandmother had taught him since he was a child. Little did Jamal know, this small moment of compassion would change everything about his life in ways he could never imagine. The old man, whose name was Mr. Harrison, had the air of someone carrying a heavy secret. There was something different about the way he looked at Jamal, a mix of relief and something almost like hope. Jamal helped him carry those bags all the way to his car, smiling politely as Mr. Harrison thanked him with a quiet sincerity. Jamal brushed it off as just another good deed, the kind of thing that doesn't usually lead anywhere special. But fate had other plans. Just 1 week later, Jamal's world turned upside down. A sleek black car pulled up to his modest home, and two well-dressed strangers stepped out. They introduced themselves as lawyers representing Mr. Harrison, a reclusive billionaire who had been quietly battling a serious illness. Jamal listened in disbelief as they explained that Mr. Harrison had requested Jamal's presence at a reading of his will, a will that revealed a staggering $500 million fortune. The catch? The old man had been searching for someone pure-hearted to inherit his legacy, someone who would use the wealth to make a real difference in the world. Jamal's mind raced with questions. Why him? How could a simple act of kindness lead to this unimaginable opportunity? Was it really true, or some kind of mistake? The idea of inheriting such a fortune felt like a dream too big to be real. But there was no denying the invitation was real, and so was the mystery surrounding Mr. Harrison's intentions. As Jamal prepared to step into a world of wealth and secrets, the stakes couldn't be higher. What would this legacy mean for him, a teenager from a humble background? Could he handle the pressure of such a responsibility, or would the weight of so much money and expectation overwhelm him? And most importantly, what had Mr. Harrison really seen in him during that brief encounter at the grocery store? This story is more than just about money or inheritance. It's about kindness, trust, and the power of one small moment to change the course of a life. Jamal's journey will test everything he knows about people, family, and what it means to do the right thing when faced with unimaginable choices. Stay with us as we uncover the incredible chain of events that followed that fateful afternoon, a story filled with surprises, suspense, and a legacy that could change not just one life, but many. What will happen at the will reading? And how will Jamal's life be transformed forever? The answers are coming next. Don't go anywhere. Jamal sat on the worn couch in his small living room, the letter from Mr. Harrison's lawyers resting heavily in his hands. It was still hard to believe. One moment, he was just a regular teenager balancing school, part-time work, and family, and now he was suddenly tied to a fortune worth $500 million. The kind of money most people only hear about in movies or read about in headlines. Yet, here he was, asked to step into a world that felt completely out of reach. His thoughts drifted back to the day he helped the old man. Jamal remembered how hesitant Mr. Harrison had been, how carefully he spoke, as if each word was measured to reveal only what was necessary. There was something in the way the man's eyes glistened with a mix of gratitude and sadness. Jamal never imagined that small moment could be part of something so much bigger, a test, maybe, or a search for someone rare in a world that often seemed cold and unforgiving. Jamal's family had always lived modestly. His mother worked long hours at the local diner, and his little sister dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. Money was tight, and every extra dollar counted. For Jamal, the idea of inheriting wealth wasn't just about luxury, it was a chance to lift the people he loved out of struggle, to create opportunities they had only wished for. But there was also a deep unease inside him. How could he, a teenager with no experience in business or high society, suddenly be trusted with something so massive? And what if there were others who would try to take it away from him? Rumors in the neighborhood had always whispered about Mr. Harrison. A billionaire tycoon who kept to himself, rarely seen in public, and with a reputation for being mysterious and distant. Some said he had no family left, that he was a man who built his empire but lost himself along the way. Jamal wondered why such a man would reach out to him, a boy from a different world. It felt almost like a storybook plot, too strange to be true. Yet, here was the letter, official and real. The days leading up to the will reading were filled with questions that kept Jamal awake at night. Who else would be there? Would the other heirs, if there were any, accept him? Could he trust the people now suddenly surrounding him with polite smiles and carefully rehearsed words? The lawyers had been clear, this wasn't just about money. Mr. Harrison wanted someone with a pure heart, someone who could carry on his legacy with honesty and compassion. But how could Jamal prove that to a room full of strangers? His friends at school didn't know how to react. Some were skeptical, others jealous. Jamal kept the secret close, worried about being treated differently or worse, being used. He wasn't sure what he needed more, support or space. And as the day of the will reading approached, the pressure grew heavier. His heart beat faster every time he thought about stepping into Mr. Harrison's grand estate, a place so far from the life he knew. There was also something else, a whisper of unease. Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that not everyone wanted him to be there. That behind the polished smiles and polite greetings, there might be people who saw him as an intruder, someone who didn't belong. The legacy Mr. Harrison left behind wasn't just money and property. It was a tangled web of old secrets, rivalries, and maybe even danger. What if accepting this inheritance came with risks Jamal hadn't imagined? What if the pure-hearted act that changed everything was only the beginning of a much bigger story, one that could challenge everything he believed in? Jamal knew one thing for sure, his life was about to change forever. But how, and at what cost, was still unknown. As the sun set on the day before the will reading, Jamal sat quietly, trying to prepare himself for whatever lay ahead. The invitation was more than just an opportunity, it was a crossroads. And when the doors opened tomorrow, nothing would ever be the same again. The morning of the will reading came faster than Jamal expected. He stood at the gates of the Harrison estate, staring up at the massive ironwork and stone pillars that guarded the property like silent giants. Beyond them stretched a long, winding driveway, lined with tall oak trees and ending at a mansion so large it looked like something out of a different world. It was the kind of place Jamal had only seen in magazines, the kind people dreamed about but never touched. As the gates creaked open and the car pulled him forward, Jamal's heart thudded against his chest. He wasn't dressed in anything fancy, just a clean button-down shirt and slacks, borrowed from his uncle. He felt out of place, like a kid crashing a party meant for the rich and powerful. But he kept reminding himself, Mr. Harrison had invited him. That had to mean something. Inside the mansion, the air was cool and still. Marble floors stretched across grand halls, and portraits of serious-looking men lined the walls. A butler led Jamal to a large room where several people were already seated around a heavy wooden table. Every eye turned toward him. Some looks were curious, others cold. One woman in a sleek black dress raised an eyebrow, clearly sizing him up. A middle-aged man in a sharp suit leaned over to whisper something to the person beside him. Jamal could feel the judgment before anyone even spoke. The lawyer stood at the head of the table, holding a thick folder. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "As you know, Mr. Harrison left behind not only a fortune, but also specific wishes. Today's reading will reveal the beneficiaries of his estate." Jamal tried to focus, but he could feel the tension in the room like a storm waiting to break. He didn't recognize any of the faces, but he could tell these people weren't strangers to wealth. One man kept glancing at Jamal with tight lips, his expression unreadable. Another woman, older and elegant, sat still as a statue, her fingers clutched around a string of pearls. Then came the shock. The lawyer read aloud the clause where Mr. Harrison mentioned Jamal by name. The room shifted. Some gasped, others exchanged glances. The man in the sharp suit stood up suddenly. "This has to be a mistake," he snapped. "Who is this boy? What business does he have being here?" Jamal's throat went dry, but he said nothing. He didn't know how to defend himself, not yet. The lawyer calmly explained that Mr. Harrison had made it clear, Jamal was not only mentioned in the will, but he was named as a primary heir. "Primary," the woman in black repeated, her voice cutting through the silence. "You mean to say this kid is getting more than us?" Jamal could feel the weight of every stare. They didn't see him as someone who had done a good deed, they saw him as a threat. A stranger stepping into a world that didn't welcome outsiders. And yet, deep inside, Jamal sensed this wasn't just about money. There was something more beneath the surface. Why would a dying billionaire trust a teenager he barely knew? After the reading, the lawyer handed Jamal a sealed envelope marked, "Private." He was told to open it alone. That night, back in his room, he carefully tore it open. Inside was a handwritten letter from Mr. Harrison. "I've watched people chase my money their entire lives," it began. "But you. What you did for me that day, it showed me something I thought I'd never see again, decency without expectation." But even the letter didn't answer everything. It ended with a strange line, "Be careful who you trust now. Not everyone wanted you to be chosen." Jamal folded the letter slowly, his mind spinning. Someone in that room might be hiding more than just resentment. Someone might be planning to make sure he never claimed what was left behind. And the scariest part? Jamal still had no idea what he was really walking into. The days after the will reading felt like a dream Jamal couldn't wake up from. One moment he was just another kid from the neighborhood, and now he was in the center of a storm no one had prepared him for. The media started circling fast. Somehow, the news had leaked. Headlines flashed across websites and local news stations, teen named in billionaire's will, family members furious. Jamal's face was everywhere. His phone buzzed non-stop, reporters, strangers, even distant relatives he hadn't heard from in years. At school, people either treated him like royalty or avoided him like a ghost. He couldn't trust who was being real anymore. And back at home, things weren't easy either. His mom tried to stay strong, but she worried constantly. "People change when money's involved," she said one night. "Just don't lose who you are in all of this." But Jamal felt like he already was. Not because of the money, but because of the pressure. Every step he took now felt like it was being watched. And there was something else, something darker. He started noticing little things. A car parked down the block 2 days in a row with the same tinted windows. A man in a suit lingering too long outside the estate gate, pretending to be on a phone call. Someone was watching him. And he was sure it wasn't just the media. When he returned to the Harrison mansion for a follow-up meeting, the air felt heavier than before. The family members were still cold, their smiles stiff and fake. But one of them, a younger man named Charles, Mr. Harrison's great-nephew, approached Jamal with an unexpected offer. "You know this inheritance isn't going to come easy, right?" Charles said, voice low. "We've been part of this family a long time. We've built legacies. You're just a fluke." Jamal didn't respond. He just stared, trying to read between the lines. Charles leaned closer. "There's still a chance for you to walk away clean. Quietly. We could even make sure you're taken care of." Jamal understood what that meant. They didn't want him involved. It wasn't about the money, it was about control. Power. Mr. Harrison had handed it to someone they couldn't control, and now they were trying to scare him out of it. But Jamal wasn't ready to give up. He wanted answers, real ones. Why had Mr. Harrison chosen him? What was this legacy he was supposed to carry? And why had the letter warned him to watch his back? He started digging deeper into Mr. Harrison's past, with the help of the lawyer, Mr. Devlin, who seemed to genuinely want to honor the tycoon's wishes. What they found was unexpected. Mr. Harrison had spent years funding hidden charities, supporting schools, shelters, and programs that helped people who had no voice. And in his final months, he had been looking for someone to continue that mission, someone outside his corrupt circle. But the more they uncovered, the more dangerous things became. One of the charities Mr. Harrison had supported had vanished without a trace. A financial trail led to shell companies connected to Charles. Documents disappeared from the mansion's records room overnight. Someone was covering their tracks. And then came the worst moment yet. One night, Jamal returned to the house to find his room had been broken into. His bag was torn open, drawers yanked out, the letter from Mr. Harrison gone. He called Mr. Devlin, who arrived within the hour, pale and shaken. "This isn't just greed anymore," he said quietly. "Someone sees you as a threat." The fear settled in Jamal's chest like stone. He realized he wasn't just fighting for a fortune. He was fighting to protect the truth behind a legacy that powerful people wanted to bury. And now, with the final estate decisions approaching, Jamal stood alone in the storm, knowing the next move could either destroy everything or finally bring it all into the light. Jamal barely slept that night. He sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room of the estate, staring at the empty drawer where Mr. Harrison's letter used to be. His thoughts raced, trying to figure out who could have broken in, and more importantly, what they were after. The letter? Or what it implied? That someone, maybe even someone at that table during the will reading, had something to hide. By morning, the lawyer, Mr. Devlin, returned with a serious expression. "Jamal, there's something I didn't tell you earlier. Mr. Harrison didn't just leave behind that letter. There's a video. It was recorded 3 days before he passed." Jamal's breath caught. "A video? Why didn't you show me before?" "It was supposed to be revealed only if things got complicated," Mr. Devlin said. "I think we've reached that point." He led Jamal to the estate's private office, a place no one else in the family was allowed. Behind a locked cabinet, Devlin retrieved a flash drive and inserted it into the computer. The screen lit up, and suddenly, there he was, Mr. Harrison, frail but alert, sitting in the very same chair Jamal now occupied. "If you're watching this," the old man said, "then I'm gone, and something tells me trouble has already started." Jamal leaned forward, heart pounding. "I spent my life building wealth," Harrison continued, "but in the end, I realized I had nothing worth passing down, until I met that boy. Jamal, if you're listening, I chose you not because of your background, but because of your instinct. You didn't hesitate to help a man when you thought no one was watching. That kind of heart is rare." The tycoon's tone shifted then, more urgent. "But I know my family. I know what they're capable of. If Charles or any of the others find out what you're meant to uncover, they'll try to stop you. That's why I left one last file, locked away in my private vault. Coordinates are hidden in the painting in my study. You'll need help getting in." The screen went black. Jamal turned to Devlin, stunned. "A vault? Coordinates? What is he talking about?" But Devlin didn't look surprised. "I had my suspicions. I think your instincts were right all along. This isn't just about inheritance. It's about something Harrison wanted to keep hidden until the right person came along." Jamal's hands shook slightly. Everything was unraveling faster than he could keep up with. And now, there was a secret vault somewhere in the estate, possibly holding documents, or evidence, that someone didn't want seen. The break-in wasn't just about the letter. It was a warning. As they approached the study, Jamal couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. The hallway was quiet, but the silence felt loaded. When they entered the study, the painting was exactly where Mr. Harrison had said it would be, a massive oil canvas of a ship at sea, hung just above the fireplace. It took them nearly an hour to discover it. Behind the lower right corner, tucked into the frame, was a small etched code. Devlin recognized it immediately. It was a set of coordinates, likely leading to the vault's location, somewhere on the property. Just as they jotted down the code, a loud crash echoed through the hallway. Devlin rushed to the door, only to find it had been locked from the outside. Someone knew they had found the coordinates. Jamal froze. "They're trying to trap us. Or delay us," Devlin replied grimly. "Long enough to reach the vault first." The stakes had just shifted again. Someone else was racing toward the same secret. And if they got there first, whatever Mr. Harrison wanted Jamal to find might be destroyed forever. Jamal's pulse hammered in his ears as he and Mr. Devlin struggled to force the study door open. The knob wouldn't budge. Whoever locked them in knew exactly what they were doing. Devlin grabbed a fire poker from the fireplace and wedged it between the doorframe. After a few tense minutes of prying and kicks, the lock snapped, and the door swung open. Jamal didn't wait. He bolted down the hall, the note with the vault coordinates crumpled tightly in his fist. The coordinates led to the far end of the estate grounds, beyond the gardens, past a shed no one ever paid attention to. Hidden beneath an old wooden floor was a trapdoor. Devlin entered the code on a rusted keypad nearby. The light flashed green. Inside, the vault wasn't just a room. It was a small, fortified bunker. Jamal's eyes widened at the rows of dusty boxes, binders, and sealed envelopes. At the center of it all was a large metal chest with a crest engraved on top, Mr. Harrison's initials. Devlin lifted the lid, revealing files, hard drives, and a leather-bound journal. But before they could even begin to examine it, footsteps pounded above. Then, voices. Angry. Rushed. Someone was coming. Devlin quickly stuffed the journal into Jamal's backpack while Jamal tucked one of the drives into his jacket. They knew they wouldn't have time to take everything. As they climbed back up, two men appeared, Charles and a tall stranger Jamal hadn't seen before. Both looked furious. Charles pointed at the bag. "You don't know what you're doing, Jamal. That vault wasn't meant for you." "You're wrong," Jamal shot back, his voice shaking but firm. "Mr. Harrison left it for the one person who wouldn't bury the truth." The stranger moved toward them, but Devlin stepped between. "Try it, and you'll have more than a broken will to deal with. This entire estate is under legal audit now. Any move you make could cost you everything." Charles clenched his fists, but something in Devlin's tone made him pause. Jamal didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked straight past them, heart racing. They didn't try to stop him. Not yet. But the look in Charles's eyes said this wasn't over. Later that evening, Jamal sat alone in his room with the journal open in front of him. Page after page detailed the truth, how Mr. Harrison's fortune had once been built on shady partnerships, how certain family members had laundered money through fake charities, and how Harrison had tried to fix it in his final years by secretly funding real causes. One name kept coming up in those pages, Charles. Not only had he stolen funds, but he'd also hidden donations meant for communities like Jamal's. The next morning, Jamal gave everything to Devlin. The files, the journal, the footage. Together, they presented it to the lawyers, and eventually to the board overseeing the estate. Charles was removed from the will. Criminal investigations followed. The media picked up the story again, only this time, Jamal wasn't just the teen who inherited a fortune, he was the one who exposed a billion-dollar lie. But just when it seemed the storm had passed, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a short note, typed in a plain font. "You think it's over, but some legacies go deeper than money. Be careful who you trust next." Attached was a photo, an old one. Jamal stared at it, confused. It was a black and white picture of Mr. Harrison as a young man, standing beside someone who looked exactly like Jamal. Only it couldn't be him. Could it? His heart skipped. Was there more to this connection than either of them ever knew? Jamal sat at his kitchen table, the photo still in his hand, turning it over again and again. The face next to young Mr. Harrison looked so much like him it was almost haunting. Same eyes. Same posture. Even the same small scar above the eyebrow. When he showed it to his mother, she went quiet for a long moment, her hand pressed to her chest. "That man," she finally said, her voice soft, "that's your grandfather's brother. He disappeared decades ago. No one ever really knew where he went." Jamal leaned back, stunned. It suddenly made sense why Mr. Harrison had chosen him. Their families weren't just strangers who crossed paths at a grocery store. There was a hidden connection, a bond that stretched across time, one Mr. Harrison had likely discovered during his final days. Maybe that's why he'd looked at Jamal with such familiarity. Maybe he'd seen a piece of someone he lost. Over the next few weeks, life began to settle into something that almost felt normal again. The investigations into the Harrison family continued. Charles and 2 other relatives were charged with fraud and obstruction. Devlin stayed by Jamal's side, helping him make sense of the estate and what he now owned. But Jamal didn't care about the houses or the money. He focused on the foundation Mr. Harrison had started in secret, the one supporting real people, real lives. Jamal renamed it the Harrison Hope Initiative and began expanding its reach into schools, housing programs, and youth mentorships. He poured his energy into building something good, something lasting. Every time he walked into a classroom or sat with kids who had grown up just like he had, he remembered why this all started, with a simple act of kindness outside a grocery store. The media still followed him sometimes, though the attention faded as other stories came and went. But for those who really knew Jamal, he hadn't changed. He still caught the bus when he could, still stopped to help neighbors, still carried groceries for anyone who needed a hand. The world had labeled him an overnight millionaire, but the truth was deeper than any headline. He often thought about that day when Mr. Harrison first asked for help. How different life would be if he'd just walked past. But Jamal didn't believe in accidents anymore. That moment was meant to happen. A quiet test that revealed something money could never buy, a heart that chooses to do good when no one's watching. One afternoon, while organizing some old estate files, Jamal found another letter. It was short and handwritten, tucked inside an envelope marked only with his name. "If you're reading this, then you've already done more than I ever hoped. You proved that legacy isn't about blood or bank accounts. It's about soul. Keep building. Keep believing. I chose right. H." Jamal smiled, folded the letter carefully, and slid it into his pocket. As he walked out into the sunlight, past the garden, past the old shed and into the city he still called home, he knew one thing for sure: he hadn't just inherited a fortune. He'd inherited a purpose. And that, more than anything, was what he planned to protect.